business. A, County Clerk. Number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Madam Chair, this morning we have one set of vouchers in the total amount of $662,223.68. I'll make a motion that we approve the vouchers as presented.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion by Commissioner Archer, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Number 2, there are no correction orders. Number 3, consider approval of resolution number 2013-137, authorizing the county clerk to cancel and reissue 2 checks.
Any questions on this item? It's not anything out of the ordinary, pretty standard. They paid the $10.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion to approve by Commissioner Archer, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Item B, Sheriff's Office. Number 1, consider approval of resolution number 2013-138, authorizing the execution of a lease agreement, contract C-489-2013, with the Kansas Department of Transportation for lease of the Emergency Communications Tower located at 220 Southwest Gage at no cost to the county.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lance Royer with the Sheriff's Office. Be happy to answer any questions if I can. It's been kind of frustrating to work with attorneys to get this contract the way we wanted it, but it's done now. It's not quite the way we wanted it, but it's working.
Okay. And there's no cost.
The state's attorney, that's correct. The county counsel's office did an excellent job.
Clarification there. And there's no cost to the county.
There is technically a cost. What you approved in the first part of the agenda, on the consent agenda, there's a $27,000 cost that is for us to install our equipment there.
Right.
Technically, there's no monthly cost, there's no yearly cost, so that is the only cost. And that'll be paid out of the COP as the early agenda item.
But do we pay electricity or anything like that?
No, we don't.
Nothing.
And that was one of the contentions also, yeah. We don't even pay electricity.
All right.
Years ago, the county built the building, gave it to the state, was part of the first agreement that we had years ago. So I think part of the electricity gets kind of washed out
I see.
in that.
Thank you. Questions?
Motion to approve the lease contract.
There's a motion by Commissioner Cook.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item C, Information Technology. Number 1, consider approval of request to purchase a replacement for one of 2 HP 9000 series printers that are used in the operations area for high volume print jobs in an amount of $6,865.
Good morning, Commissioners. Pat Oblander with the Information Technology Department. In our operations area, we have 2 large printers that we use to do print runs for high volume print jobs. One of those printers is approximately 11 years old and is no longer able to be renewed for maintenance contracts. So we're just hoping that that thing doesn't break, because if it does, we don't have any fallback to get that fixed. The other machine that we're relying on is 7 years old at this point. We're still finding the ability to do maintenance contracts on that, but it's going to be in the same situation as the other. And we'd like to purchase a replacement 9050, which is the same size printer as the 2 that we've got. We want to retire the one that's completely out of service, out of maintenance, and have 2 machines in there that are both under maintenance contracts. I'd be happy to answer any questions on those if you have any.
I just have one. The request is to pay out of capital outlay. And
Yes.
you've spoken with Betty Griner.
Yes, I did speak with Betty Griner, and she said that she would be in support of this purchase for that.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
And Mr. Olander, the printer that we're asking to replace, it is still functional, it is still working.
Yes.
And so we're spending close to $7,000, $6,800 just in insurance, so that if something does happen, we have a service contract.
Yes. Well, it's to ensure that we have 2 functioning printers. The 11-year-old printer is basically hanging by a thread. We expect it to fail. We are queuing up to print out tax statements, about 60,000 of those for the first run, and then later we'll do another run of about 30,000. And when we're running those, if we're down to just one printer, it's a bit of a crisis for us. We need to have 2 functioning printers to do that. Even if we're approved for this printer today, we're still going to be in the situation for the first run of 60,000 with one fairly good printer and one very marginal printer. So I want to get out of that risk, and I want to have 2 fully functional printers, both of which are covered in a maintenance contract, so that if we do have a failure on either one, we can get somebody in here right away and get that repaired.
Are there any other high-speed printers in the county that would be similar to this that you would be able to borrow from another department or agency?
There is another printer out in the elections office, I believe, that does have the ability to print those. We do have a complicating factor in that we have an application that we run our print jobs through that formats the job for the specific printer that it's printing on. And it's difficult in an emergency situation to switch the licensing on that application so that it points to another printer.
But if both were to go down tomorrow, you start printing the tax statements and you lose both, having not purchased this one, you would still be able to call on the elections office to try to get those printing of the tax statements done?
It could possibly be done. It depends on the timing of the print job that we're doing. The tax statements that we print, we have to wait until all of the information is ready to be printed and it's signed off on and approved by all the different departments that participate in the process. And sometimes we don't get that go-ahead until just a little bit before it's time to get those things, the print output sent to the American Presort for mailing and for mailing. And the timelines can become very tight for that.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further questions?
Motion to approve the expense of the replacement of the printer.
There's a motion by Commissioner Cook,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Number 2, consider contract C-490 2013 with CA Technologies for licensing for mainframe software components in an amount for 2013 and 2014 of $150,520.
Pat O'Blander with the Information Technology Department again. This item is to renew the ability for the software components that we have on the mainframe that are provided by CA Technologies to continue running. This also includes maintenance, but primarily what we're paying for is the ability to use these components. Without paying this fee, those licenses will shut down and the applications that we're running on the mainframe that depend on them to function will cease functioning. So we do have to have these in place. I do want to make you aware that we have the option of purchasing these licenses a year at a time rather than 2 years at a time. The option that we have is $75,260 per year for the next 2 years, or we could go with $78,100 to renew for just 1 year. The risk that we run with that is, what will the cost be for that second year? We do not know. There's a bit of question as to what that would wind up being. It could be $78,000 again, it could be $80,000, it could be $84,000, we just don't know. We're relatively certain that we will need these licenses for the next 2 years, so that's a gamble that I feel we'll lose if we take that option. And I'll leave it to you to decide if you'd like us to take that gamble, we can. But there's a lot of factors that have to fall into place just perfectly for us to be able to retire the mainframe within the next year or before November of next year. It may be possible, but I don't think it's terribly likely.
So the changes that you're making, you don't think can happen in
Before
that 1 year?
November of next year. I think it's a pretty sure bet that we will need these licenses for next year and the following.
Other questions, Commissioner?
Couple of
Archer?
questions, but this expenditure is a component of what we will be saving when we go to a virtualization platform.
Yes.
Okay, I think it's important that we note
Yes.
that. Do we have enough in the budget to pay for 2 years this year?
We have enough in the budget to pay the $75,200 for this year.
Okay.
And then factored into next year's budget is the amount, a like amount for the payment that would be required in 2014. So it
Okay.
is factored into the budget.
So we're going to expend the funds next year for next year's?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be paying this year $75,260, and then again, this would approve us to make that payment in the 2014 year as well.
But we're locking in a rate for
Yes,
2014?
that's what we're doing.
But we do anticipate then this is savings beyond those 2 years potentially
Yes,
with the virtualization?
We fully expect that by the end of the next 2 years, we will no longer need to make this procurement.
Okay.
Okay. I'll move approval of the request. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. Discussion?
No.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Number three, consider contract C 491, 2013 with Plural Site LLC for 12 months of licensing for access to online training courses for 14 staff members on software development in an amount of $4,586.
Again, Pat O'Blaine with the IT department. This item is a renewal of some online training that we have used in the past, very successfully, I might add, that allows developers that are doing software development to obtain training on items that they would like to get up to speed on. We really like this training option because it gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of the training options that are available, the times during which people can make use of them, and the costs associated with them are much lower than other options that we've relied on in the past. Typically, when you go to a training session, you find it on somebody's training site or at their location, and you're kind of at the mercy of what they're offering at that particular time. If it fits, great. If it doesn't, you might have to wait several months to get that piece that you want. Pluralsight offers all of their training all at the same time. You can go through the list of courses, pick the one that applies to you or the project that you're working on at that particular point in time. Go ahead and fire up the course. It's self-paced. You can do it during business hours, during work from home, whatever you'd like to do. A lot of options are available to you that way. So we feel like this is a really good value, and we've had really good success with using it for the last year or so. Be happy to answer any other questions that you might have on that one.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions?
Madam Chair, I had asked Mr. Oblander for some utilization statistics with this software, and I was impressed by the results, so accordingly, I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure.
Second.
So motion by Commissioner Archer, second by Commissioner Cook. Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Pat.
Commissioners.
Item D, Health Agency, number 1, consider approval of request to advertise and fill the medical director position in the Community Health Center.
Good morning, Commissioners. Alice Weingartner, Health
Morning,
Agency. This request before you is to fill our medical director position. As you know, our medical director resigned. We are currently maintaining his services under a contractual arrangement, but by moving forward with a full-time position, it will provide us with the resources to have someone in the clinic to see patients more frequently. And it also, this position works very closely in our strategic planning towards patient-centered medical home status with our quality improvement activities to help us meet our clinical goals and objectives for various grants that we have in place. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Alice. Other questions?
Motion to approve?
It's a motion to
Second.
approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Item E, Elections, number 1, consider acceptance of the 2013-2014 HAVA Endowment Grant from the Kansas Secretary of State for the purchase of 120 Apple iPad 4s at a total cost of $57,480, with the county share being $28,740, and authorization to negotiate the purchase of the PullPad software from No Inc. at an estimated cost to the county of $99,370.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Andrew Howell, Shawnee County Elections Commissioner. I thought rather than jumping deeply into a numbers analysis, I wanted to talk about some of the real issues and existing risks that have to be overcome at the election office. As you know, I've been on the job just over a year now. It's been an exciting adventure. But I guess I kind of want to come out and talk very directly and specifically with you about some of the issues and some of the risks that we've faced, do a little bit of historical analysis with you on kind of some of the things that we've been dealing with and what I believe the correct answer and the tools that we need to accomplish overcoming those risks and issues that, as part of Shawnee County elections going forward. You know, just prior to me coming on board in August 2012, we had a primary at which some ballots were handed out incorrectly. I would note the prior election commissioner had pared down on polling places significantly at, I believe, county commission request in an effort to save some money. And I applaud that goal. I believe that was a wise decision. I think some of these decisions going forward are going to be driven by budget considerations. And so that's a lot of the impetus, and I believe it's going to continue for a while. We have to do more with less, and we have to do it better. Again, I absolutely applaud that goal of saving taxpayer money, and I have myself been very focused in coming under budget as well. Unfortunately, in my last year's experience, I would say that our volunteer board workers with 3 hours of training cannot and should not reasonably expected to handle the level of change that we've put upon them, as well as the election office, without more capable tools to accomplish that goal. Let me be clear. I am not criticizing the county commission. I understand the budget issues that you deal with. I'm not criticizing our prior election commissioner. I have the highest regard for her, and if anything, my recent experience has given me a lot more appreciation for the intense amount of work and effort and thought that she had to put into these issues. I'm not criticizing our board workers or our voters. I guess what I'm simply stating is that complexity is our biggest enemy in the elections business. As a result of these significant changes, some voting locations in Shawnee County now have a multitude of ballot styles by political party, by precinct boundary, and they also vary greatly by election. So the rules for each election and the necessary training are changing constantly and vastly more complex than they used to be. Remember that for a major election, we have to hire nearly 600 employees. We have to fully train and we have to test each of them in under 3 hours for a 16-hour day of work. And we're hoping that all trainees remember all the complicated rules. And of course, we expect nothing less than perfection. No business in the world would take on this bet. And yet the Shawnee County Election Office has to accomplish that result without fail every time. The solution that we have developed in the office to this risk, and again, I've spent a year trying to understand what can we do better, how can we make these improvements and still come in under budget and accomplish the results that we have to accomplish. We've developed a risk mitigation strategy that will allow us to control the constant change in a more consistent and a more trainable manner for the public as well as our board workers. We have implemented a policy that all ballots in Shawnee County will have a color word printed on them. And we've done that in recent elections. That helps board workers. It helps the voters more clearly and consistently identify the correct ballots that the voters should receive. We still need to implement the other piece of our strategy, and that is this. We need the tools that are specifically designed to guide board workers through the constant maze of change to ensure a consistent product. Based upon the research that we've conducted in the office, myself, Mark, and Edie, I've formed a small committee. We've been looking at these issues. We've actually spent some of our own money driving into Missouri looking at how other counties are dealing with this level of change and risk. And at this point in time, I have to tell you, there's no better tool on the market to accomplish this than the poll pad, which we'll speak briefly about a little further. And then I want to also analyze what occurred briefly in the 2013 February spring election. As you may recall, the forecast on Saturday called for over 12 inches of snow on Monday and Tuesday, which was an election day issue. There was a very high risk that some polling places would not be able to shovel the snow, clear the parking lots, and would not be able to open their buildings. Likewise, we were also very concerned about the safety of some of our board workers attempting to travel to and from some of those locations. as well as the fact that we knew that the public was being told, stay off the roads, don't get out, it's too dangerous. So we had kind of two competing interests going on, creating some issues for us. So at that time, we did not have the resources to really adequately, in a timely manner, inform the public of the changes that would be required and of the reassignments and the consolidations for those polling places. We would have to reprint poll books in less than 24 hours, verify and prevent voters from voting at new locations that they weren't supposed to. So there were just a number of complexities. And as you may recall, the mayor requested the ability at a minimum to open 5 locations instead of 1. We would like to have been able to have accomplished that. The solution to this problem, which I think, again, we have all experienced recently, a less than optimum situation here. We have developed a strategy and we need the tools to accomplish a faster poll book production to meet the rapidly changing needs for voters. We need the equipment that will allow us to set up emergency vote centers that prevent convenient loading at any location and yet assure that each voter only votes once. Again, our research shows us that this can most effectively be accomplished with the poll pad. Finally, at this time, I wanted to just, I've asked Josh King with Wyandotte County to come and do just a real brief presentation about how they use the poll pad in Wyandotte County and the success they actually did have in that same election using those processes. Josh?
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Thank you for
Welcome.
having me. I'm going to take just a few minutes here to get my technology set up again. So bear with me. We're going to go through kind of the story of our election, our introduction to poll pads. Now I understand. All right, here we are in business. We've got beautiful starscape for you to stare into for just a moment. All right, we're back. Like Commissioner Howell said, I am from Wyandotte County Election Office. My name is Josh King. I'm a program coordinator, and I'm tasked with making technology and elections meet in the middle and have a good outcome for everyone involved. And so like Andrew said, I'm here to talk to you about our, our introduction to the poll pad. And since our first election to use these was in February, I'd like to say it was our snowy introduction to poll pad. When we showed up in the office that Monday before the election, our plan was to have all of our polling places open. We planned to pilot these in 2 locations. We had purchased enough poll pads to take them, use them in 2 locations to test the waters. For one reason, we were gun shy about electronic poll books because of some past experience with another vendor. The county had purchased those machines and had failed to get them to work as they had been promised. And so the commissioner made the wise decision to send them back, get a refund, and move in the direction of the poll pad. So we sent those out to those 2 locations. That was our plan. And in doing so, we trained 2 supervising judges, 1 from each location, and a total of 7 board workers. We didn't want to get it out there and get, overpromise, and then if we find out that it's not going to work, have to backtrack. And so we kept it quiet and only trained those people that would be dealing with it on election day. And then if you remember, it began to snow. And it snowed, and it snowed, and it snowed. And before long, our entire county and most of the counties in this great state were blanketed in snow. And obviously that's going to change things for us. So we had a meeting to decide what we were going to do. But while that happened, we realized that the snow was changing advance voting. Before the forecast came through, we had a trickle of people, 4 or 5 an hour, a total of 50 throughout the day. They'd come in, they'd vote, they'd get their sticker, and they were out the door, and they were happy. And we were happy too. But on that Monday before the election, we saw an increased turnout. I showed up at the office about 7:30, and there were people waiting outside the door. They had seen the forecast. They said, I want to vote. I'm going to do it today. And so we saw people all day, a line out the door that we were dealing with. We also had increased hours. Standard day before the election, state law says we're going to be open from 8 to noon. Wisely, the Secretary of State's office sent out a memo saying that in an emergency situation, we were going to stay open until 7 o'clock. And so we did our best to get that information out. Counties throughout the state had to do that information, get it out to the voters so that they knew that they could still come in even if they missed the noon deadline. What that added up to was a total of 1,740 people walked through our door the Monday before the election and cast a ballot. And the amazing thing I want to point out is all 1,740 of those were processed on just 3 poll pads. Now, we saw these numbers in 2008 for the presidential election during advance voting, but to process that many people in a day, we had 5 or 6 computers running all day, 5 or 6 staff members, and a dedicated printer just to deal with that amount of people. And we can replace that with 3 people running 3 poll pads. But the snow didn't just change advance voting, it also changed election day voting. About noon, I was called off the front desk where I was checking people in. We had to meet and decide what we were going to do. We knew we couldn't open all of our polling places. We had already had calls come in saying, our building's not available. We had calls from our poll workers saying, we're not even going to try and get out. You're on your own. And so we made the decision to look at our emergency plan. It said to consolidate to 5 locations and to reassign voters to the nearest polling place. And so we were going to take our map from this to this, with just 5 locations countywide. And we realized that that second thing, the reassigning voters to the nearest polling place, was going to be a huge pain. It made it difficult for 2 reasons. 1, we had to tell people which location to go to, and 2, we had to decide which location they should go to, and do that in a fair manner, in a way that they can understand. And at some point in that discussion, we decided, wait, we don't have to do this. Let's consolidate to 5 vote centers and let voters go to any of those 1 locations. This made the message very simple. You know, the media could say, if you want to vote tomorrow, here's 5 locations, go to any one of them that you want. And what made that possible was PollPad. And that's not just marketing speak, so I want to talk to you about why I say that. You know, the normal way of doing an election is you take, in Wyandotte County's case, 82,000 voters. You can't have that at 1 location with paper poll books because it's difficult to do. So what we do in normal instances, we break those up across the county, and we'll assign 2,000 to this location, 3,000 to another location, and what have you. And within each of those, you have a paper poll book, and it's probably broken up into segments so that it's not 600-700 pages for one board worker to flip through and get tinnitus by the end of the day. But with PollPad, we don't have to do that because we can take all 82,000 registered voters and load them on each and every one of our devices. That allows us to check in any voter in the county at any location if we're in a vote center mode. And so at a flip of a switch, we could change from polling place, where only the people assigned to that location can check in. Yeah, we can look them up, we can see their information and direct them to the correct location. But for that February primary where we went to the vote center method, we could change from a polling place to a vote center in a matter of minutes. It's 1 setting change, we go in, open that up, and it's ready to go. And finally, I say it was made possible by PollPad because we could rapidly deploy to meet our needs. The scary thing about that election, other than snow and all of that, was that we owned 11 poll pads. That's it. We had bought a small number to get us through advance voting and our 2 locations on election day. And we called No Inc. They were on their way up to do election day support, and we said, can you bring a couple extra? They said, yeah, we've got them in the car. So we had a total of 13 of them spread across 5 locations. My location had 2. A couple of the others had 2. We had 3 at the election office and 3 at a location out west. As the snow cleared and things got a little better, the west location was very, very busy. They processed about 1,400 people that day. They called and said, hey, is there any way you can get another poll pad out here? They sent one out with one of our tech runners. It got there, and within minutes, it was in the lineup and ready to check people in. And so it allows you flexibility to make those changes, to make the lines move faster for the voters and get them checked in just as quickly as you can. And so for that reason, when we were done with the election, our commissioner purchased some pins for our board workers to commemorate their dedication to coming out in the snow and the bad conditions. And so we gave them a pin that, you know, said the Blizzard of Oz. And we did the same for PollPad because really it did make it possible for us to do what we thought was the best option for our voters and for our election workers. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I also have several of our units here if you want to see the process of checking them in. But at that point, I'll hand it back to Commissioner Howell.
Thank you.
I just want to publicly say I really appreciate you taking the time to come over and visit with us and give us your experience in other counties. It does help to get a little bit better perspective as to how other counties in the state do deal with these kinds of issues. So thank you. I guess I'm going to close with the following comments and take the questions and kind of visit with you about how you want to proceed. I take the responsibility as your election commissioner very seriously. I'm not asking for additional dollars outside the already appropriated 2013 budget, so we're not asking for money today. I'm asking for your permission to address the biggest threat to running successful elections in Shawnee County, in my judgment. We absolutely must reduce the complexity and those issues of complexity to a manageable level. If we do not do that, we will not be able to deliver the goal that we all share, which is a fair, honest election administered according to law. As you know, the Secretary of State's office has reviewed and approved a one-time only HAVA grant of 50% for the iPad portion of this proposal in the amount of $28,740. Shawnee County would be responsible for the remaining 50% of the cost. The decision is a critical one for today because we need to either accept or not accept the grant. Honestly, I was not aware of how quickly this grant process was moving and the need to make a decision fairly quickly. Frankly, I was presently also surprised by the Secretary of State's significant award. I was surprised by how large it was and the speed with which they moved in that award. At this point, I would like your permission to proceed with negotiating a contract with Knowing for the poll pad purchase, as well as licensing agreements and ancillary equipment, subject, of course, to final approval by the Board of Commissioners at a later date. I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Howell. Yes.
Commissioner Howell, given the Blizzard of Oz was a anomaly in voting, it was not something that we would plan on every year, but where Wyandotte County was able to take their multitude of polling places and reduce it down to 5, where the voters in Wyandotte County could go to any of the 5 locations. With the purchase of this software, would you envision something similar for Shawnee County, where if a Shawnee County voter in Rossville wanted to vote in Oakland, that would be acceptable and feasible?
I believe that we can accomplish that in the future, but I'm gonna hedge a little bit and say, if I've learned anything in the last year, it's go slow. Don't make major changes to your systems that voters and the public and board workers, we need to make sure that we've studied that out. So I think it would give us that capability going forward. I'd have to run some of those by the Secretary of State, make sure that they don't have a problem with some of the legal side of that. Part of the reason we were able to just make some decisions that normally we probably wouldn't was just the unusual nature of that particular election. So the opportunity is there, the possibility exists. I think it's something we ought to consider. As a matter of voter convenience, we ought to look at those options fully. I'm not prepared to state today that I'm going to do that, but I guess what I'm saying is at least we would have the option to fully study that capability and that potential.
But wouldn't you agree that one of the hindrances to voting has been confusion over where to vote?
Absolutely, without question, every time you make a change, absolutely.
And people are creatures of habit. If they say that I've always voted at this school and now I need to go to the Hummer Sports Park, but next year I need to go to the Ag Hall, I don't know where to vote, so I guess I just won't. And if you have that ability to have consistency or accessibility.
Change is a significant problem as it relates not only to voters, but also to our ability to communicate with the right set of voters in a timely manner. So yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely an issue.
But this poll book would potentially, and I stress potentially, I put you out on a ledge, but give you the ability to look at that in the future.
We could at least study it and the potential exists. I think that's a safe statement.
So your plan going forward then is to have these at all polling locations or a handful? Kind of.
We're probably going to implement them at all polling locations.
Okay.
I'm comfortable enough, having spent some time in Missouri at my own expense, driving and studying the issue along with Mark and meeting several people in our office. We're comfortable enough with the functionality, which was, I believe, one of Libby's original reasons for not moving forward on some of these matters was, and as Josh can attest, some of the early equipment wasn't up to the task. We've studied it, we're comfortable with it, we know that it works and it's capable, so I would say yes, that we do plan at this point to
And
do
what
that.
election do you anticipate implementing this?
I would expect the 2014 election to implement that.
Okay. Okay. And Josh, I probably have a question for you. As far as backup, what if, you know, a paper copy, once you get it printed, you know, you have it, but what if there's a situation that the system is down?
So the process for loading your data onto these, it's pretty simple. We went through the old process. The new process is you'll upload it to a website. It converts it. It's encrypted both up and down.
Okay.
You bring that file down and you push it out to your poll pads. And so that file's coming directly out of our voter registration system. That's a statewide system, so we're all using it. You take the data out. It's just a bunch of flat files that the conversion process puts into a table that the poll pad understands.
Okay.
Now, within each polling place, the poll pads will talk to each other, so they basically become their own backup. So if you had a disgruntled worker that picked it up and threw it on the ground, completely broke it, pray that doesn't happen, you've got that data elsewhere. So it's going to sync those records across. There's also opportunities that we're looking at, you know, as a county-wide, the sync up to the cloud encrypted, of course, so that we have that data backed up the entire time.
So you do have to have Wi-Fi capability at
To
those
do-
locations?
To do the county-wide sync, yes.
Okay.
If you, for instance, in April when we ran these countywide in our polling places, they synced within each polling place,
Uh-huh.
and then we pulled the file off of one poll pad from each location.
Okay.
So,
Interesting. What other counties throughout Kansas are using this technology, Andrew, do you know?
Wichita is,
Sedgwick
Sedgwick
County is.
County, I believe, is using it, and I'm not, Johnson County is its own animal. I probably don't fully understand some of their processes. They use a little different system. I'm not familiar with them, but I know that
Okay.
Sedgwick and Wyandotte, for sure.
Further questions?
Madam Chair,
Uh-huh.
before we leave this issue, Commissioner Howell, looking forward, do you have, and again, this is a little bit, well, I've got you captive, so to speak. Looking forward, have you looked at what the costs are going to be for printing some of our ballot costs and looking forward to some of the elections? During the budget process, you talked about concerns with the printing, and with this purchase, is this going to drive you over budget?
For 2013's budget, it certainly will not. I fully expect to turn money back to Shawnee County for 2013. We're going to come in, even with this purchase, under our numbers. So for 13, no. For 14, as I think I've mentioned to you at length, our budget is very, very tight, very difficult. There are a lot of unknowns as to exactly how many ballots, what the length of those ballots will be. I mean, there's so many unknowns that I kind of hedged a little bit in our original budget presentation on that issue and said, for 2014, the answer is, I don't know for sure until we place those bids and see how they come back.
Okay.
That's probably one of the longer-term question marks. I mean, to your credit, you've made us all crunch numbers, and try to figure out what's possible. If the bids come back significantly higher than they have in the past, we may have to visit about that, but I'm committed to coming in under budget if humanly possible.
If the Secretary of State has us going to a two-ballot system, and again, looking at, we're spending money for poll pads now, which is going to have an impact, maybe not this year, but next year as we continue with technology. Technology always continues to cost us. The minute we invest into a system, we're going to have updates and new expenses. But if we have a two-ballot system, has there been discussions with your office, with the Secretary of State, to sharing the cost of some of the printing or sharing some of the costs of the budget?
I guess I'm, at this point in time, not worried about that expense because at the last check, I think we had 4 voters that were affected by that. I think at 4, we can manage that level of risk. But that kind of gets into a little bit different discussion about where's the lawsuit going. I don't know.
Okay.
How are people going to choose to sign up? As long as it's 4, 6, 8, 10, we can handle it. I encourage people to consider all of their options as to how they choose to sign up as a voter and register, because it can affect your ability going forward, and it's a little murky. We don't know exactly how that's going to work out in the courts. It's kind of a complicated answer to an issue I'm not worried about yet.
Thank you.
So you need from us today the approval of and the acceptance of the grant, and then the authorization to negotiate,
Correct.
correct? Are there further questions? Any comments from anyone in the audience? Eve? Curiosity?
Eve Kendall, Department of Corrections. Doesn't have anything to do with corrections, but
Okay.
Do they actually vote on the iPad also, or is it just a sign-in?
Excellent question. Yeah, I should have addressed that. Security is a significant issue for me. I can tell you that personally, as a voter, I was not a fan of technology before becoming election commissioner. I voted on paper every time. So it matters to me, and it matters a lot. What we're talking about today has nothing to do with casting any votes on an electronic device. This is an information management, a voter history management tool only. I am not comfortable with electronic voting devices outside of what the elections office currently uses that have gone through the proper testing protocols. And I might also add, the one other major benefit of this particular poll pad device is that it is, Pat, you may want to address it, I know we've talked about this a little bit, it is FBI level encryption. So it has significant advantages in that regard over some of the other products that exist, and that's why I'm comfortable with it. Thanks.
Okay. Good question. Very good question. Well, with that, I'm going to move approval of the request.
I'll
Is there
second
a
the
second?
motion.
Second by Commissioner Archer. Again, further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0, and then we will see the negotiated contract back
Yes.
before us, correct? Thank you, Josh, for being here this morning. That helped a great deal, so thank you very much. All those in favor, did I say that already?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good. All right, next item, please.
Item F, Commission, number 1, consider appointment of Connie Hubble to the Jayhawk Area Agency on Aging Board of Directors.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Bueller, second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0.
Administrative Communications.
Anyone have administrative communications? No?
Yep.
Yes.
If I may,
Commissioner
I
Turpin.
just wanted to give some special recognition to my longtime good friend, the county treasurer, who I wrote and said, Larry, I've run out of milk, and would you please provide me a gallon of 2% milk as soon as possible? Well, this morning, Larry left this in my office with a note that said, Bob, as a true conservative, I'm sure you appreciate that I cut the 2% fat down and downsized you to half a gallon. Please enjoy, Larry. Thank you, County Treasurer.
Larry Moss, Shawnee County Treasurer, I think that deserves a response. I just hope that you're not offended that because I've been married to a liberal for 30 years, I could not bring myself to apply a means test. But do enjoy. Thank you.
Very good.
That's all I have.
All right. Next item, please.
Executive sessions.
I believe there is a need for executive session for a period not to exceed 15 minutes for non-elected personnel and employer negotiations. Correct, Mr. Bummel? That is a motion.
Second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. 15 minutes.
don't think anybody wants to be me.
It's for Cynthia. They're setting levies. She's working on figures and setting levies with Diana.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they need to get something there.
Good.
Oh my gosh, you got a lot for me to sign, don't you? Oh, goodness. Okay, all right, thank you. We are back in session. No action required, and we are adjourned.
That's all for the chair.
Mm-hmm.